Is anyone out there listening? Good. You've tuned into Lavender Town Radio, the only station brave enough to broadcast the static between worlds. Tonight, we have a story for you, a whisper from the shadows, a tale woven from the dark pages of the Pokédex that they never wanted you to read. But first, a small favor. If you find a chilling comfort in our stories, show your support by hitting the like button. It's a small click for you, but it's a beacon for us in the digital darkness. And to ensure you never miss a transmission, make sure you subscribe and ring that little bell. It helps our signal cut through the noise. All right, the signal is clear. Now, are you comfortable? Good. Let's begin.
My name is Geeta. In a world of numbers and calculable probabilities, I am a constant. As La Primera, Chairwoman of the Paldea Pokémon League, my role is to maintain order. I evaluate trainers, I manage gym leaders, and I ensure that the complex machinery of our region operates with near-perfect precision. I am the one who controls. I am the one who decides. I believe there is no problem that logic, strategy, and overwhelming force cannot solve. I lived in a world of answers until the sky started to scream. It didn't begin with a bang. It began as a whisper, a low, barely perceptible hum, like a freight train passing from a great distance, but there were no tracks there. Within hours, the whisper had become a groan, a long, eerie drone that seemed to come from every direction at once. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't the wind. It sounded like the metal of an entire city being crushed or the trumpet of a dying god. It filled the air, an auditory presence that made your teeth ache and your skin itch. Within 24 hours, all of Paldea could hear it. From the beaches of Puerto Marinada to the snowy peaks of Glaciado, there was nowhere to hide. The people called it the Paldean Roar. I called it an unknown variable, and I despise unknown variables. The reports began to flood in. First, confusion, then sickness. The residents of the towns near the great crater of Paldea began to report identical symptoms: severe migraines, nosebleeds, and a persistent, unending nausea. But the Pokémon were worse. They are more sensitive creatures. I watched security footage that made my blood run cold. Herds of wild toros, normally orderly, suddenly turning feral, ramming into each other until they dropped dead. Fletchling falling from the sky, convulsing. In Lavencia, a woman called in a panic, her gentle Eevee having suddenly turned on her, its eyes red with pain and confusion. The sound wasn't just a noise. It was a poison, an auditory weapon attacking our entire ecosystem. And as La Primera, it was my responsibility to turn it off.
The sky over Paldea began to scream, and we all had to listen. The League's strategy room in Mesagosa, normally a place of calm order, was now a hub of controlled chaos. Rika stood by my side, her face like stone, coordinating calls from rangers and police across the region. Hassel was in a corner, trying to calm a panicked gym leader over the phone. And Larry looked more tired than usual, which I hadn't thought was possible. Geologists say it's not seismic, Rika reported, placing a tablet down in front of me.
Meteorologists say no weather phenomenon could produce a sound like this. It's not coming from the ground. It's not coming from the atmosphere. It's just there. That is illogical, I said, rubbing my temples. A dull headache had begun to form behind my eyes, an unwelcome guest. Everything must have a source. Our satellites have narrowed it down, Rika continued, pointing to a 3D map of Paldea. A red circle was pulsing, encompassing the entirety of the great crater of Paldea. The epicenter of the sound is somewhere deep inside Area Zero. Area Zero, the place where the laws of physics were mere suggestions, where creatures from the past and future roamed, where the professor's time machine had torn a hole in the fabric of reality. We can't send a normal research team in there, Hassel said, finally ending his call. The terrestrial energy concentrations will scramble any scientific equipment. And if this sound has this effect out here, then at the source, it would be a death sentence. Then we will not send scientists, we will send soldiers. I gave the order. Activate Protocol Stratos. A team of 5 elite league trainers, the best of the best, graduates of the academy whose combat skills were near flawless. They were not children, they were professionals, trained to operate in the most hostile environments. Their mission: descend into Area Zero, identify the source of the sound, and if possible, neutralize it. As we were preparing, an unforeseen complication arose. One of the Academy's top students, a young woman named Ilara, who had just begun her gym challenge, came to see me. 2 of her friends followed. "Chairwoman," she said, her voice filled with determination. "We heard about Protocol Stratos. We want to volunteer." My headache was worsening. The groan from outside seemed to be worming its way into my skull. I looked at the 3 children standing before me, their innocence and bravery almost an insult to the complexity of the situation. "This is not a gym challenge, child," I said, my voice sharper than usual. "This is a mission you may not return from. We've been to Area Zero before. We know the terrain. We can help." A sharp, violent pain shot through my head. For a moment, my control wavered. The desperation of the situation, the pressure to find a solution, it all coalesced. "Fine," I snapped. "Get ready." "Chairwoman!" Rika's sharp voice cut through the air. She had moved to stand between me and the children. "No," she said flatly. "They are going nowhere." She turned to Ilara. "Back to the academy, now. That is an order." The students looked shocked and disappointed, but they complied. Rika turned back to me, her eyes unflinching. "Do not let your headache make your decisions for you again." I didn't answer. She was right. The sound. It was getting to me.
We sent an elite squad into Area Zero. We didn't know every Pokémon inside had already gone mad. The Stratos team began their descent at dawn. We monitored them from the strategy room via their body cams and drone feeds. The team leader was Kale, a quiet, stoic trainer whose Corviknight seemed to be made of steel and shadow. Alongside him were Anya, the team's tech expert with her Magnezone, Jax, the gentle giant with his Garganical, Ilara, a different Ilara, a ranger, the survival expert with her Arboliva, and finally, Reese, a young tactical genius with his Glamora. Area Zero greeted them with a dead silence, broken only by the incessant droning sound. No movement, Kale reported over the radio, his voice crackling. No birds, no insects. It's like the whole place is holding its breath. That silence didn't last. As they moved deeper, the attacks began. They weren't normal encounters, they were frenzied ambushes. A pack of screamtail, their eyes red with pain, burst from the rocks, not to hunt, but simply to attack. They shrieked, their cries mixing with the groan of the sky. They're being tortured, Elar's voice came through, full of sympathy. The sound, it's destroying their minds. The Stratos team fought flawlessly. They didn't kill, they neutralized, using precise attacks to render the suffering creatures unconscious. But their numbers were endless. Every dark corner, every cave concealed a Pokémon that had been pushed to the brink of insanity. "We're losing resources," Jax reported after a few hours. "Our potion supply is running low. Our Pokémon, they're being affected too. My Gorganical won't stop trembling." On the monitors, I could see it. Even the elite trainers were showing signs of strain. Risa's skin was pale. Anya was constantly massaging her temples. "Keep moving," I ordered, my own headache worsening in unwanted empathy with my team. "You're almost there."
The source of the sound wasn't a machine. It was a creature, and it was asleep. After 8 relentless hours, they reached the final, deepest laboratory of Area 0. The steel door had been bent outward, as if struck by an immense force from within. "We're going in," Kale said. His camera feed showed us a scene of utter devastation. The lab was completely destroyed, the equipment was crushed, and in the center of the room where the time machine once stood was a massive crater. And the groan, it was right here, deafening, overwhelming. "Anya, get me an energy reeling," I commanded. "Can't, Chairwoman," her strained voice replied. "All my instruments are off the charts. The energy here, it's beyond measure." They approached the edge of the crater. Kale's camera pointed down, and all of us in the strategy room held our breath. It was there. The source. It wasn't a machine. It was a creature. It was curled up at the bottom of the crater, fast asleep. It resembled an X-Cloud, but it was all wrong. It was enormous, easily 50 meters long. Its body was not flesh, but what looked like volcanic rock and raw terra crystals. The 4 pipes on its back weren't simple holes, they were small craters, breathing out faint, shimmering fumes with each breath. And with every exhale, a deep, powerful drone emerged, shaking the very cavern. The Paldean Roar, the scream of the sky, the sound that had brought an entire region to its knees. It was just, it's snoring. "Impossible," Hassel whispered beside me. "It was a paradox Pokémon, a primeval ancestor to X-Cloud, a rumbling roar, as the professor's files had called it, a creature that should not exist." We found it, and in a moment of arrogance, I gave an order that will haunt me forever. It was sleeping. That was a weakness, an opportunity. All of Paldea was waiting. The hospitals were overflowing. The economy was at a standstill. I needed a victory. I needed an answer. The arrogance of La Primera, the belief that everything could be controlled, took over. "It's asleep," I said over the radio, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is our only chance. I want you to go down there, approach quietly, and use a special tranquilizer gear to keep it sedated. We must contain it. We must study it." There was a pause on the other end. Then Kale's voice, strained. "Chairwoman, with all due respect, the energy it's putting out, it's unstable. I don't think that's in order, Stratos leader." I cut him off, my voice like ice. In the strategy room, no one said a word. Rika looked at me, her eyes a mixture of disappointment and concern. I ignored her. My eyes were glued to the screen, watching my team begin their descent into the crater, their small figures looking so fragile next to the slumbering beast. They almost made it to the bottom. They moved perfectly, silent as ghosts. Jax had the special tranquilizer rifle ready. They were only a few meters away from it. And then a small pebble, dislodged by Anya's boot, tumbled down and clinked against the creature's rocky hide. A tiny click.
It was only one scream, but it erased my most elite team, and all that was left was the silence. The creature didn't wake up. Not fully. One of its massive eyes cracked open, a sliver of golden magma. It looked at the Stratos team, not with anger, but with the annoyance of someone being roused from a deep sleep. And then it yawned. It wasn't a yawn. It was a roar. A roar that was not just sound. It was a physical force. On our monitors, I saw it, a visible distortion in the air, a pure sonic explosion erupting from the monster's mouth. The video feed from Kale's camera cut out instantly, but not before I saw the last image. I saw Reese's body, the one standing closest, simply disintegrate, like a glass shattered next to a giant beaker. Then our screens turned to static. Stratos team, respond, Rika yelled into the radio. Kale, Anya, anyone, respond. Nothing. Silence. The 5 best trainers in Paldea, my soldiers, gone in a microsecond, almost without a trace. All that was left was the silence. And beneath the silence, carried on the remaining drone's microphones, I could hear it. The low, steady drone. It had gone back to sleep. I stood there in the now silent strategy room, staring at the static-filled screens. My headache was gone. It had been replaced by a cold, heavy emptiness. I had made a mistake, and 5 lives had paid the price. That sound was no longer a problem to be solved. It was a judgment, and I had failed.
The transmission is ending. The static is creeping back in. Thank you for listening to Lavender Town Radio. Remember, the Pokédex only tells you half the story. We're here for the other half. Your thoughts on this story are valuable. They tell us what scares you. Leave them in the comments. To help us continue broadcasting from the abyss, please hit the like button and, most importantly, subscribe. More subscribers mean a stronger signal, and a stronger signal means more secrets can be revealed. This is Lavender Town Radio, signing off. Be sure to check your shadows. You never know what might be listening.